I'm Cray Beaumont Flynn. Welcome to Beyond the Design, a show that gives you a peek behind the curtain of the design industry and shares the stories of those that are the driving force behind it. Well, welcome to Beyond the Design, and today we have as our guest Victoria Sass. Welcome to the show, Victoria.
Hi, Cray. Nice to see you.
You too. Well, let's hear all about you and your journey. What initially sparked you into interior design?
Oh, well, thanks for having me. This is really fun. Design. Let's see. I was just listening to your episode with Jay Jeffers the other day, actually, and was thinking about this because he mentioned, just to give a shout out to my friend Jay, he mentioned that he came from another career. And then I remember you saying like, that seems like it's a really common thing. So I feel like I've often joked that like, I feel like a unicorn and that this is all I've ever done. Not a unicorn in like a perfect sense, but just like a rare sense. This is all I've ever done is interior design in a variety of capacities. But I, started pursuing it right outside of high school. I always loved design. I always loved making things. Tried a lot of different mediums, entertained being like a jewelry designer when I was young, or knowing I wanted to like produce something creatively. Yeah. Right. I went into interior design, studied it every opportunity I could get all over the world, life fed it. And then worked commercially for about 10 years as an interior designer, largely freelance, or independently solo. I came out of school in that 2008 bubble. Did about 6 months with an architectural firm, and then they started closing down like flies. So started my own thing and have been kind of feral ever since.
Gone wild.
Yeah, there we go. There's no hope for me but this path now. So, I think in 2015 is when I started this studio, Prospect Refuge Studio, with the intention of taking on residential work. It was just me for the first year or two, kind of figuring things out and getting a portfolio and getting a following. And then we've been growing ever since. We're currently at 8 people, which feels like a good boutique size for us.
Yeah, it's manageable. Have you noticed a significant evolution or change in your design style over the years?
I think we're getting braver every year. Bravery is a big piece of it's one of our like core tenets, is not only like ourselves being brave, but finding brave partners and brave clients who are looking for that kind of stepping into the unknown, putting something brand new into the world, not trying to follow a formula too much in terms of design. We have design processes, but just like it being very experimental in terms of like what a home needs, what a client needs. So incrementally you try something new in a project and then you're like, okay, that's the new bar, that's the new level. And then you take one step farther and one step farther. And sometimes being brave isn't always beI think the last couple of years, there's been a lot of acceptance and embrace towards really unique, personalized designs. So sometimes that shows up in like wild color combinations or really fantastical, like sculptural components. But sometimes it's like an exercise in minimalism, modernism, that can be just as intimidating, the process of editing away down to a core essence. So that's something I've really noticed. And then like myself personally, just growing a studio and my role changing from being a solo designer with no assistant, no team, to all of a sudden having to manage designers, to now managing a larger procurement team and an administrative team and a design team. And what's next? How do we continue that journey? That's been a growth process.
So is there a significant Victoria Sass style that you try to infuse in your projects? Just like a little touch, a little hint of something that's personally part of you?
Yeah, I have a lot of passion for old homes. One of our kind of a thing that people come to us a lot for is we really love old homes, young families. So we really, we love, it's not preservation, so to speak, but I do think working in urban areas where there's like historic, like century old homes and you love the character of the neighborhood, I think keeping those neighborhoods vital, keeping people in those neighborhoods living without like tearing down structures, trying to
Right.
find ways to keep their authenticity alive. But we also, part of that is like modern day looks very different than it did 100 years ago, modern day life.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe you do have to open up some rooms. Maybe you can't preserve this in its pristine nature and keep people living in it well. So I really love that like dynamic of working with old homes. They're very complicated. It's like having a second client.
Right.
I don't think I've ever said that before, but now that I think about that, it's like you have your human client and you have your building client, and they both have needs, and you have to respect both of their needs, and you can challenge one in certain ways, you can challenge the other in certain ways, but you have to find a way to marry them, which is a fun, complicated process. I enjoy it.
So how do you navigate the collaboration process with your clients, and how do you balance your own creative vision with their preferences?
We are really conceptually driven. So early on, we spend a lot of time making a very specific conceptual story around every project. And then we use it as a tool all the way through the project. I think it's a process that's sort of developed organically. We initially I just did it because I needed clarity of like, what am I making? Where do I want to go? Where do I want this project to go? And then I started letting the clients into that process more, letting them use the tool too, and finding that there was a lot of power and reassurance in that. So they found there was a couple of clients that I felt really comfortable sharing this kind of concept work with, and they responded with more decisiveness. They responded with a lot of joy and pleasure in knowing the direction and using that tool. So we build this deck, this document of usually there's something very specifically like symbolic of the home we're trying to create. So like one example I give is we had one project that just installed this last year that was like a white button down shirt. And so all throughout the process, we write a paragraph about this white button down shirt and what it means and why we want the house to feel like a white button down shirt at the end of the day. Or we've done, I'm trying to think of some of the other really strong ones. Like the more specific, like we're talking to one client right now, shout out, about like, is it like a ring pop? Is it like, is it like a nostalgic piece of candy? And so as you're going through this design process, you can hold your decisions up to that lens and say, does this feel like a ring pop? Does it have the same joy and youthfulness and exuberance and irreverence? Or does it feel like too formal and fussy and serious, And really quickly, clients are able to get on board and know where we're going. And it's just abstract enough that they don't get too caught up in the details. So that's a big thing that we use.
I love your analogy of your conceptual thoughts. I want my house to look like a lollipop.
Do you? Like you personally want that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I want to be like surprised and shocked and excited in each room.
Get that sugar rush every time you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Except for the bedroom. Except for the bedroom. Then it's kind of like a sedate.
It's some candy that puts you. It's an edible. It puts you to
there
sleep.
you go.
I don't
know.
There
you go. I like that. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
So, can you share a project that was particularly meaningful to you, and either due to its complexity, emotional resonance, or the impact it had?
I have two that I can think of immediately. All of them, I grow. I grow from every single project we do, but there's my own home which I learn a lot of lessons. I like to use it in a couple different ways. Right now, it's actually going through a huge remodel. It's a old home. I have a young family, so like I'm right there in the thick of it with everyone else. But it's an old home, and we're remodeling it currently. And I'm running it through the studio as if it were a project to try to, from a business perspective, feel what it feels like to be a PRS client. You know,
on the other side.
Like how often am I being communicated with? What does that feel like? So I'm asking my designers, which I'm probably, this is not a great scientific experiment. I'm not getting like a pure, unbiased, experience. But for the most part, how often am I being communicated with? What do our documents look like? Are they confusing to me as a client? Do they feel really clear? Am I being asked questions in a way that I know what I need to do to be a good client? Evaluating our technical process has been really helpful, but creatively, she is like another member of our family that we are learning to live with and enjoy and appreciate. And I think when you live in an old home, you have to modify your behavior to some degree to accommodate it. I love a strong personality, which is probably why I love old homes. Like I love people with really big, strong opinions. I find them fascinating. I don't feel intimidated by a challenging human. I don't feel intimidated by a challenging property. So I actually like having a challenging partner. I think someone who keeps you on your toes, I find that really engaging and invigorating. So my home, I learn a lot from. I experiment in my home with materials and tradespeople and technical installations that I'm like, anytime somebody's telling me, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. I'm like, I'm going to do it in my own house. And then we'll really see. Yeah. Right. We'll really see if there's actually something to it that we can use. Like right now I'm trying to build my own bathtub from scratch, which is more challenging than you'd think to try to like, not just buy a bathtub, but like make it out of materials. The other one, the client one that I think of is this kitchen that we did. If you look at our portfolio, we call it the Gucci kitchen, and it's red and green. It's really strong. And this was the first time a client came to us and said, I really want something I'm paraphrasing, but I really want something hyper personal. And to be totally frank with you, she actually did say this, I don't care if it's ugly. And I knew what she meant. She meant, I don't care if other people don't like it. Right. Like, I'm like, it's not going to be ugly. Like, but it might be, there will be people who will look at it and say, that's not for me, you know? And she was there. And it was the first time that I think I was given that permission to really go for it. And it helped me build tools to help others do that. Because I think a lot of us want to be given that permission. She was just already there and she gave that gift to me and allowed me to like develop a system to help encourage people and do some little case studies along the way. So that was a really big one for me emotionally and creatively.
Interesting. Could you share a pivotal moment or project that significantly, I can say it, influenced your approach to design? Significant. It's too early. I need coffee.
Yeah. Are we in the same time zone? Is it?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's make sure. Boy, do you have one? Give me an example. Like.
It was probably a project I worked on that had a lot of circular rooms, like turrets and such. And it's like, it was so repeated and so often. It's like, how do you kind of change it so you get a different experience without having to do a curved sofa or curved seating in each room? So I did a lot of build outs to kind of square off rooms or make various angles. So it was more about architectural design than interior design. I've been changing that experience and that emotion when you walk in the room instead of constantly seeing, I don't know why they had so many rounded rooms.
that would be really hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I find
like curved walls and just like, and it wasn't an old building. It wasn't an 80s building. It's just like, what the hell?
as you're talking about that, I'm
not do
thinking
a
about
straight line.
in like historic properties, there's a lot of like large rooms, but not like large in a sensible way. They're like really long or something. And they maybe have like a fireplace in the middle, but like it's 25 feet long. And you're like, well, this can't really be 2 seating areas. This can't really be 1. And so I think about like, how sometimes those parameters can really affect the result at the end of the day. And how do you approach that as like a fun challenge? I think one thing that started to happen once I built that residential portfolio and it started to resonate with people and we were getting, clients from it, is that I noticed a lot of people would start to ask for what we had already, you get what you show. They'd start to ask for what we had already done. And so they would come, and maybe not so specifically, but as we're working through some of the design prompts and I'm getting to know them, I'm realizing they're like asking for a project we've already done. They're like, they want us to recreate something they've seen already, which is okay. I mean, if you're not looking at design, interiors all the time, that's probably a really natural reaction. I love fashion, but I'm not a person who works and lives and breathes in fashion. So I probably recreate outfits I see online with or without knowing it. So I do think like, as I started to see that, we developed a studio role where we never use the same thing twice. And I can count on one hand the number of times we've done it. There was like a planter, one light fixture. Like it has to be an incredibly compelling reason for me to use it again. Or it was like used in such an obscure way that like no one would ever feel that connection. Because I didn't want to get into a place where we were just we had an MO, where we had a one note kind of design approach. It was more experiential. It's more about discovering who that client is and what they're searching for and how we can help them fulfill. This is big and kind of woo-woo, but like how we can help them fulfill their destiny through this tool of space and the environment that you surround yourself with. I think there's a lot of research and belief and support in the idea that the people you surround yourself with affect your destiny. I think just as much as the humans that surround you, your physical space can change your energy, can change your mood. So working on a process of being very hyper specific to our individual clients, that individual property, rather than like, I have this universal blanket of like ethos on design. And I believe that every room should have an animal print in it or something.
I like that.
It should be more specific.
Yeah.
It's been a hard journey. I will say, trying to like do more and more national work. I do think professionally it's easier if you have a very specific, if you're like, I'm the best in the country at doing traditional Southern interiors, Southern architecture. You'll get a big, people from all over the country will say, well, I want a Southern home, so I'm going to go to that person. When you're trying to just be like, well, I'm just going to do what's right for you specifically and your home, it's harder. It's harder to explain to people when they can't see it. But I'm up for the challenge.
What's your creative process like? How do you approach a new project from concept to execution?
It's very, it's interesting you ask that, because I have a couple colleagues in the industry who I really like to compare processes with. And I didn't know that our process was different. Was that different? Again, never having worked for another formal designer, I sort of developed my own process organically. But I just thought, I bet there's people out there that do it our way. We are very layered, I will say. I mean, a lot of people use concept. We are like extremely into the concept. Like I think you do it in school, but then maybe it falls away a little bit. And there's maybe a concept, but it's not as heavily leaned into. So the concept is one piece, but then we're also we're very layered. So we don't design a room and then present it to the client, or design a floor and then present it to the client, or design a whole home and present it to the client. We might do, a lot of times I like to I'll start with some sort of foundational component. It really depends on every project, but let's just say it's rugs. This house is built on a foundation of beautiful rugs. We'll start with that, and then we'll lay the next layer. It might be art, or maybe it's, okay, let's get the big soft seating pieces down. But we're doing, so the client's not really getting this experience. There's good and bad, but it works for us.
Right.
They're not getting this experience of seeing the whole picture day one. So they're almost coming on the design journey with us. Because just like a designer, you don't come to an idea fully formed. You work on it. You build it.
Develops,
you massage it. Yeah, it develops. Exactly. And so they're getting to kind of watch our development in real time. So we have a lot of very close together meetings with our clients. It's not it's every week we might meet with them, and we're presenting to them the layer we've worked on, and we're getting feedback. And then we develop the next layer and we get feedback, and we develop the next layer. And sometimes we circle back a few layers if we need to, if we find that their feedback is conflicting with some previous layer. So it kind of stews more than it, if you go to a restaurant, you're not being presented with a meal. You're at a cooking class where you're cooking the meal in real time with the person who's showing you the behind the scenes along the way. Which I think we get a lot of clients that are really interested in the design process. We're sort of distilling it. So, you don't have to go to the market. If I'm still using this cooking analogy, you don't have to sharpen the knives. It's all ready for you. You just get to do the fun part of making the decisions and pulling it together. But I think they get more of an active hand in shaping the direction, which gives us more unique outcomes, I think, at the end of the day, because we're allowing them to be more involved. They might do surprising things that we're that is not what a trained designer would do, but I love it. Let's run with it. Actually, somebody asked me the other day what I would do in design if I didn't have a client. And I said, I wouldn't do it. I love that sharp right turn that sometimes clients put me down an unexpected path that I'm I never would have got there.
Well, it's a form of challenging. You're being challenged too, to your professional career and your professional insight, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You need to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so unexpected, spontaneous, engaging. I find humans endlessly interesting. I think personalities are fun to look at people. There's almost no one in this world that I don't find interesting.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think that, it's very client influenced, which is not for everyone. We've had a couple of clients that were if I could just write you a check and see you in a year and it was done, and we have done that, it's not as much fun. I mean, we can do it, but I love having the client there for the journey, and I love when they enjoy it.
Yeah, it's an interaction. And it goes back for me being challenged and standing behind my beliefs in my professional thoughts of why I was hired. But also, it's like analogy of cooking. Oh, throw a little bit more salt in there, or add that to the ingredients. Wow, I didn't think of that. Plus, it's their environment. It's their living space. It's their lifestyle. So you can't be with them 24 hours a day, unfortunately, or sometimes. Good thing you're not. What challenge have you encountered in your career, and how did you overcome them? Any memorable breakthroughs?
I think I'm going through a challenge right now.
Yeah. Hopefully I didn't steal that.
No, not in this exact moment. This is a great moment. No, sorry. I didn't mean it that way. I meant in my whole world. I think the challenge right now is twofold. It's an incredible challenge of opportunity in that we're in a very fantastic, stable place as a studio. And we're sort of looking for, it was a big lift to get, the team that I have is so phenomenal. The portfolio, I'm proud of it. It's exactly the kind of work I want to continue doing. Our clients are amazing. Like I'm so lucky all the way through. And now I'm sort of standing at this precipice as the leader of as our firm, our studio, to say, where do we want to go next? And there's a number of opportunities and paths to take. And I'm sort of sitting, I think 2024 is the year of evaluating and deciding, and then on into the next adventure. It's a challenge. It's a positive challenge, but it's a really daunting challenge. Also, of like, I hope it's the right thing. It will be, whatever path we're on is the right thing. But I think historically it's been a challenge to lead a design firm in the Midwest. I don't know if you feel a touch of that, but
yes.
I think
slight learning curve, I guess you could say.
Just times. Like trying to lead like a national quality, a design firm that's working at the national level in this geographic location. I mean, open up any design magazine and you're seeing, any list of top designers, and it's New York, LA, Paris, New York, LA, New York. And you're like, I want that extra level of challenge of like, I want to make it here. There's a couple of icons that I love, I'm just going to say it. I want to be Frank Lloyd Wright. I want to be, not exactly, but I want to make my own path in my own geographic location, but still have that same level of success as top tier design firms. And I believe we're going to do it. I really do.
So who or what has been a major influence in your design style and through your career at this point?
Let me think about that.
Besides Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just in terms of like making a design movement, making an impact. I think the Midwest is an incredibly untapped resource. I think there's a lot of eyeballs on the coasts, and many people are, there's a couple of very recognizable styles in certain geographic locations all over the United States. I don't think anyone has done the work to define Midwestern style. I think we do have a style. I think it's valuable. I think especially as we move forward into new priorities in society, new cultural goals that, there are a lot of people that are looking for that are having different values in their lifestyles. I think, I'm just going to say it, like I'm generalizing, but there's some Midwestern values in like economy, longevity. We're not the early adopters of like big, flashy, crazy trends. We kind of like to buy once, buy smart. I think Midwesterners are willing to invest. They're slower to get there. They're not like throwaway culture people. I think it's
longevity too. And I think we play a more important part to legacy pieces within our lifestyle that we pass down.
Absolutely. I think some of those qualities are overlooked. I think, we're thought of as flyover country and not having anything good to contribute to the design conversation. And I think I'm forecasting that's going to change.
We're going to change it.
Well, we'll change it. We will change it. We'll start talking about it more and educating people on that. There's benefits to this, and that we, just like in the 60s, you maybe look to California design for like a wellness culture or, laid back surf culture. Like there have been movements throughout history where people have looked to overlook geographical locations to build a lifestyle.
Right.
And I think we're next. I really do. I think we are.
Just as long as, sorry for those that are listening that like it, the farmhouse look, I think it's just been so overdone that, there's more to our design aesthetic that we bring besides the farmhouse look.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
I think you're right. I mean, okay, here's the thing that I find really fascinating in working in this area is I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't think I haven't landed on that nugget, like I mean, Joanna Gaines, to her credit, the Magnolia folks, they did a great job
Oh,
of
absolutely.
distilling an aesthetic that wasn't being given a lot of attention and could work and help a lot of people and fit a lifestyle that a lot of people were looking for. It's not for everyone. I haven't landed on that like essence yet, but that's the work I'm trying to do, is think about what happens when you filter a British kitchen trend through a Midwestern lens. What happens when you filter Japandi design? My husband's Danish, so like Scandinavian design. I spent a lot of time sitting with that kind of design and working in that kind of design. How does that come out the other side when you run it through a Midwestern cultural lens?
Right.
I think it's really interesting where there's similarities, where there's overlaps, where there's total disconnects. Anyway, that's my big challenge for the future.
What is in the horizon for you? What's going on? I know you have a lighting collection. You can tell us a little bit about that. And what else you got coming up?
2023, we rolled out a collection with Hennepin Made, who's a lighting maker here in Minneapolis. Beautiful lights, very they are also very into like this Midwestern ethos and what it means. The thoughtfulness, the attention to detail, the longevity of things, the restraint sometimes. So check them out. But our lighting collection with them is called Ontologia. And me and Jackson, who's the owner of Hennepin Made, we're really bonding and geeking out over. I genuinely feel connections to objects like they're people. And I kind of want that for people to a certain degree. I think that's going to be a big part of sustainability. I think if people care about their things, like they care, not in an amalgamation, not in a consumption way, but once you own something, if you care about it and care for it, like you would a child or a pet or a human or caregiving is a big piece of it too. Again, that's maybe why I love old homes. They require you to give care to them.
Correct.
And I think that's a big piece of love, really. And I think if we want to stop feeling the need to buy more, we need to develop a relationship with our things if we want it to last a lifetime. And I think working with people on what that means from them, they can't just take. It's not a take relationship. It has to be a give and take. I've seen too many clients come in the door. Sorry, I'm getting off the topic of lighting. I promise I'll come back.
It's all right. It's your show. Hey.
But I've seen so many clients that like designed a new home and were like, I'm still wanting. I
need more. I need more.
Yeah, there's something missing. And I'm like, okay, we need to talk about what the house needs from you, which is a hard one. Like some people want a kitchen that just works for them exclusively. That's good in the short run, but in the long run, you want a home that you feel connected to. And sometimes that means it's teaching you things about yourself just as much as it's performing tasks for you. I don't know if we'll ever feel connected to robots, because we see that as, at least at this point in history, like a very one-sided relationship. What can you do for me? Have you ever had a quality relationship with someone where the relationship was just, what can you do for me? No, it might feel good in the immediate sense of the word. You might be like, yeah, this person's doing stuff for me. But long-term, it's not a healthy, deep, meaningful relationship. And that is what I genuinely believe about objects and stuff and homes, that we need to get to that next level if we want to purchase things sustainably. Now I'm stuttering. Okay, I'm coming back to lighting. Why am I talking about this? So ontology is the study of being. It's a study of existence, of when does something exist? When does it have a being? Gotcha. And exploring that, like, what does it take? It's just the early level of it, of like, how can you own an object and feel connected to it? So I started to think about like things that people, maybe cliches, people that, when do you give something a name? And I was thinking about my boat, Freya. I have this boat on the Mississippi, and you name boats. I think that helps. They require a lot of care. I don't know if you've ever been a boat owner.
Yes.
They're very needy. And, or maybe you've had an old motorcycle, or maybe you've had an old car. My parents had a couple of old cars, and we always named them. We never named the new cars. We never named the ones that didn't need anything. We always named the problem cars. So I think, exploring that, I think that caregiving is a big piece. So we worked on, how do we make a lighting collection that requires interaction? You don't just pull it out of the box and plug it in and away you go. You have to shape it. There's a core collection of finishes, but there's no set, like stocked finishes. You have to kind of choose your own direction within a limited palette of materials. And then if you get a chance to look at it, you get this light, and it's got this like unruly amount of cord, which you have to shape, and you have to figure out what you want to do with it. Are you a person who's going to knot it and tie it up and keep it tight and keep it contained? Great. That's your relationship with this light. Are you going to let it spill out all over to the floor and be this wild, untamed animal? Great. That's your relationship with this. Maybe it changes. I have one in my studio. We have it over our conference room table, and it moves. I've shaped it, and it undoes itself. And sometimes I come in and I have to like restructure it. And I love that it's forcing me to pay attention to it. It's saying, hey, I need
attention.
I need attention. They also, like, the globes come off, so you can like rearrange them, or you can, ours over the dining table, you can put them on the table, and then it's like candlelight rather than light coming from above. It's kind of coming from below, which is lovely. So yeah, it was all this exploration and like, what are some small ways we can start to get people to engage with the objects in their life and keep them challenged, interested for the long haul, and not just make this like, oh, well, that trend's over, on to the next one. Yeah. So the future, I think, would be exploring all of these ideas more. I'd love to write a book. That would be a big endeavor. Have you written a book?
No, but it's twirled around.
Would you want to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a
What would
few
you write
ideas.
it on? If you don't mind saying, if you don't want to, if you're like, hush, I won't.
I actually want to write a book when we get to, I haven't really deciphered a 50 or 100 episodes of this show, of all the various artisans, craftsmen, creative visionaries that we've had as guests. So about them, and put it into a printed material.
Do you see a lot of overlap? I bet you do. I bet you see a lot of common threads.
Some, like we talked about previously, is like a lot of designers in this industry started out doing something else, and this became secondary, and it just kind of fell into it of something they didn't foresee or plan to do, but it just happened because someone walked into their life. It's like, you need to be a designer. You have designer sense. You have a unique perspective. I would say over 50, probably about 80% of the people that we've talked to on the show started doing or wanted to do something else, was in a different path, and, and just some of the interesting personal journeys and stories that have been presented on the show. It's very interesting, It's a lot of very creative visionaries that are out there. And it's about them. I think that's why we started the show, to hear their personal stories, because we can go through a magazine and see their portfolio and the projects and the pretty pictures. But the people behind the scene, the people beyond the design, has been more fascinating, I think. So combining that into a book form has been going around in my mind, as well as the second podcast that we do, which is called Beyond the Art, which is all Native American driven, doing a book kind of pretty much the same way. That's it. I have some stories in my head too, but that's a different show, a different topic.
I didn't know you had a second podcast. I have to tune into that. Yeah. I think Indigenous culture is so big here in Minneapolis and all
Absolutely.
throughout the United States, obviously. And I think it's fabulous. So I'm definitely going to subscribe to that podcast. That's really great.
It's called Beyond the Art, and it's all focused on the Native American art world. So everything from fashion to photography to the culinary arts and obviously all the craft arts. We've been on for 2 years now, and it's been amazing journey. I'm Native American. I'm Cherokee in Delaware, so I'm a registered citizen of both nations. So,
I'm excited for both of those books in your future. when
Probably
they happen. Yeah.
Another year. And hey, you'll be in it. So there you go.
Well, book, I mean, I don't know. I feel like a book, it's like when it happens, it'll be all consumed. Do you feel the same way? Like it'll be all consuming. It'll be a year of my life or whatever it takes.
Absolutely.
So I'm sort of just looking for that right opening. You know, the universe will always sort of synthesizes and you're like, this is my particular mission. I'm a big, it doesn't have to be calendar years, but I tend to find that like a good, healthy, ambitious project or section of a project, a compartment of a project takes about a year. So I work in like years.
I'm the same way. Yeah. I got my blocks. I got my to-do list and my blocks. Yeah.
Super organized.
Very driven and very focused, and don't mix it too much up for me.
I think it's fun in being a creative and having an appreciation for that. Like, I think there's a big stigma out there, and maybe it's true for a lot of people, but there's this impression that like all creatives are like wildly uncontrollable, like, not responsible, not organized. I get so much pleasure out of organizing a process, a project, a space, whatever it is. I think it's, creativity is problem solving, and there's so much problem solving in the technical side of things.
Very true.
I also love the emotional side. Like, I often tell my team, like, we don't sell furniture, we sell feelings. Like, what do they want? Like, I mean, I could just put a couch in someone's house and it will fit. Yeah. Like, I can do that. That's not that difficult. So how can I make that sofa feel important? How can I make them look at that sofa and feel the thing that they're seeking in this world? So
it's also that experiential reaction to them, the emotions that's driven to them for that piece of furniture, whatever it may be.
Yeah, there's a lot of like reward in when you accomplish that level of design, that you really help someone connect and not just fill the physical need. Yeah.
So throughout your journey, is there any projects that really stand out? It's like that was the epitome of my aesthetic creative vision.
It's always the next one, right? You probably hear that all the time from designers. We're always like, next one. it's the one I'm working on right now. It's the one I'm dreaming of in the future.
Right.
I think, something, and I think the lighting collection was a start into this. Something I'd really like to do more of is I design so much. I've done so much work trying to figure out how to design for specific people. So you come in and I design for you and only you and no one else. And I really want to make sure it works for you. And if you need it to work for other people because you throw lots of huge parties and you need everyone at the party to be comfortable, we'll think about those people.
Right.
But we're not designing it for resale. Like, I can keep that in mind, but like the goal is like to design it for you and in the long haul. I think it would be really interesting. I find it an interesting challenge doing the lighting collection. So maybe that is where I want to go with this, is like, that has been a really pivotal project for me in that I sort of an unexpected byproduct was I didn't really think about what it'd be like to design for everyone all at once. And I'm still not really, you're still not really designing for everyone. You're designing for a select group of people who believe in the same things as you. But it's still a group of very diverse people, even within that category, that collection of people. They all have their own individual lives and needs. And one might live in an apartment and one lives in a, palace, and they're both attracted to your object. And how do you work on that more. So I think more collaborations would be really interesting to explore. I think I'd love to do like a hotel. Being that I used to do a lot of commercial spaces, I think I have a lot of foundation in that. Retail spaces, restaurants, things like that. I'd like to maybe explore now, having spent a good decade in residential work and thought more about the like deeply intimate, personal, one human experience, not like the whole.
Right.
I'd like to revisit that and think about like a hotel. I think combines the residential experience in a public setting, which is interesting to me. How do you walk both tightropes at the same time? How do you make someone feel at home, but not really? You sort of, part of the pleasure of a good hotel is like, it's not too homey. It's more put together than your real home.
Right. And the experience, that you, and the emotions that you pull from those individuals. And it's also about the branding. How do you create a brand name within tactile objects and experiences?
Do you do a lot of that work?
I have in my career. I have, mostly gaming, Las Vegas. I was in Las Vegas for 10 years. I was in Singapore for 10 years. So doing a lot of the hospitality projects in those locations.
That firm that I worked for 6 months before the economy went crazy, they did a lot of like entertainment complexes and gaming facilities, and I found that fascinating. Like, I love those like super niche, hyper specific design situations where you're like, how do we make people feel good in this situation, or feel the way we want them to feel, but still feel like they're in control? I don't know. It's a really interesting psychological problem to work on and explore. And I thought that was really interesting. Like one time I toured a Supermax prison. I thought that was really, not to make a jump between like gaming complexes and Supermax, but I was like, what a fascinating design problem to solve. Like you have to keep the guards safe. You have to keep the people who are being housed there, the inmates safe. You have to keep guests safe, not only from each other or outside influences, but from like, how do you handle a fire in that situation? How do you handle exit strategies in case of a natural disaster? Like all the levels of complexity, but it's still a residential project in a way. Like these people are living their lives there, and how do you balance that? I find our world of design and spaces infinitely interesting, and there's no limit to places you could explore.
True. So what do you want to explore next? What's on your horizon that you have not achieved as of yet in this journey of yours that you want to?
I want to export the Midwest. I do. Yeah. I want to, and I don't know, I'm kind of like toying with like, should we open an office somewhere? Like I keep feeling like I love learning about other architectural styles. Like earlier in my career, I was like, I'd love to like work on different kinds of properties, different eras, do some Spanish colonial kind of things out in the West, or maybe work on really classical, traditional Southern architecture. I think it'd be really fun to do that. But then I was like, it's always going to have my Midwestern lens there somewhere in the process. And so, I think continuing to like develop that ethos, clarify it to a place where like someone who's mildly interested in it could digest the amount that they're interested. Someone who's really interested could take on more. Like, how could I kind of have different levels of introducing people to what that might look like? And explore more of it. I know people always like talk about travel and like, where's your favorite place to travel to? And I travel a lot, but I sometimes find the most inspiration in like unexpected places.
Same. Absolutely.
like I went to Kansas recently for a project, and I was not expecting to find it as interesting as I did. I think Kansas gets a bad rap.
Yep.
In like deeply rural Kansas, the project was. And it was like in the Flint Hills out there. And I'm like, this landscape, on surface level, you might say it's a lot of nothing, but nothing is a lot of nothing. And in this world is like a lot of nothing, an incredibly rare thing and an incredibly beautiful thing. Like we're so inundated with content and people and culture and things, and to go somewhere where there's an absence, is that interesting in and of itself? I think so. I found it fascinating.
I look at the Midwest as a well-kept secret. You know, we have everything, and there's some really unique spaces and environments and lifestyle and natural beauty that the outside world kind of has its own perception. It's like, no, that's completely wrong, but we'll just keep it to ourselves.
You can't take it at face value. You can't take it at surface level. Like I think it's like going into the desert, and you're like in the desert, and if you were to just look around, you'd be like, oh, it's this dried up, dead looking place. But when you look really closely, there's microcosms of incredibly complex, beautiful creatures and plant life and stones. And there's a whole amazingly intimate, lovely, complex world that you could get lost in. And some people can appreciate that, and some people just can't get down to that level. And I think if you look at the Midwest and you really spend any time with it, you can really see those nuances, even between your version of the Midwest and my version. You know, I have a more northern version of the Midwest, and then there's like true Midwest. And
correct.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variety even within that category of Midwest, which is fascinating. Sorry, I said the word Midwest like 1,000 times on this podcast now.
We're promoting.
People at home can start a drinking game where they take a drink every time I say that word. Sorry, I'll stop. I'll try not to.
Well, Victoria, is there anything else you'd like to share and let our listeners know about you and your firm?
You know, I can't. We're just always evolving, and this is so fun. I love hearing your perspective on design and how you're bringing your unique lens to it. I think it's so fun to see how everyone can take a slice of life and look at it through the design lens. No, come check us out on our website. If any of this resonated with you, if you want to work in the Midwest, call me. Right. If you want to explore life in the Midwest, call me. If you want to export, if you're like in California and you're like, man, what does a Midwestern home look like in my neck of the woods, as we say up here in the North? Call me. I think it'd be fun. If any of this resonated, I'm just looking for like-minded people to continue the conversation and study and engage with. So, yeah.
So we're going to give you the opportunity to sell yourself. So how can they contact you? What's your web address and social media and all that?
Yeah. Prospect Refuge Studio is our studio name, which I know is a mouthful. Actually, can I take 2 seconds and tell you about our name? Because I think that helps people retain it. It's a very wordy name. And the theory of prospect and refuge, it's a design theory, which you probably know about, where it was the first design theory I learned about that I felt like, this is it. This is my calling. This has power. Design has power to help people. And it's endlessly fascinating. But the theory of prospect and refuge is it's like why we prefer certain environments to others. It's why you like to sit in a booth in a restaurant. It's why you like to sit with your back to a tree in a garden or a park. You want to feel safe and protected, usually from behind physically, but you could take it abstractly or literally. It's why you like to feel safe and protected, but also you want this view out into the world. You want to feel connected. You don't want to feel shut off. Nobody wants to live in a closet. Right. You don't want to face the wall. You want to face the world. but you don't want such exposure that you feel unsafe or ungrounded or untethered. And so that theory is just one of like a world of tools that designers have at their disposal, if they're interested in paying attention, that they have to use, that they can help you. And do something really interesting and creative. And so that's why I named my studio Prospect Refuge Studio. So hopefully that sticks in everyone's brain. And yeah, our website is prospectrefugestudio.com. We love our Instagram. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, we do have a TikTok account as well. Although Instagram is, I'm a little more attached to, I have to say. And watch for hopefully books or, television shows or something in the future where I can use that as a platform to talk more about what I'm passionate about.
Absolutely. Well, Victoria, it's been a complete pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
You too, Craig. I've loved it. Thank you so much.
And we will chat soon. You take care.
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.